If you come home for Christmas this year, it's going to ruin things for your brother. That was the sentence, sharp, careless, almost bored, that marked the beginning of everything unraveling. And as Selene Drayton sat alone in her Seattle office that afternoon, she couldn't help replaying her father's voice, steady and unapologetic, as if he were talking about the weather instead of disinviting his eldest daughter from the holiday she had spent her whole life trying to belong to. But this story didn't begin with that phone call. It began decades earlier, in a quiet neighborhood outside Pittsburgh, long before Selene could understand the difference between being loved and being tolerated. Growing up, she had always known her place in the Drayton household, not unloved, not unwanted, but simply second. Her parents, Edmund and Isolde, were not cruel people by intention. They were simply selective with their affection, and their selection had always favored one person, her younger brother, Alaric. From the moment he was born, Alaric became the son around which the Drayton family revolved. He was the golden child, charming, carefree, effortlessly adored. Teachers praised his personality, neighbors complimented his smile, relatives showered him with gifts and attention, and Selene, 3 years older and far less charismatic, learned early to make herself small so he could shine. Her strata report cards earned polite nods. His C- in algebra earned concerned family meetings where he was comforted for trying his best. Her piano recitals barely filled 2 rows. His Little League games drew the entire family, complete with posters and matching shirts. Every time she tried to speak, someone interrupted with a story about something cute Alaric had said that morning. And yet, Selene never resented him. How could she, when he had done nothing except exist exactly as her parents wanted him to? What hurt was not his brightness, it was how her parents dimmed hers, so he looked brighter. By high school, the imbalance had hardened into a quiet ache. Selene learned not to expect applause. She learned not to ask for help. She learned to do everything herself, because no one seemed to notice when she struggled. The final confirmation came at 17. We've been saving for Alaric's college since he was born, her father said, arms crossed as if the conversation were obvious. He wants to be a doctor or a lawyer someday. You've always been independent, Selene. You'll figure something out. So she figured it out. She took 3 part-time jobs. She rationed meals. She studied in closets and hallways and in the 30-minute breaks between shifts. She didn't party, didn't travel, didn't waste a second. And she graduated from a state university with honors without owing her parents a single cent. Meanwhile, Alaric attended an expensive private school paid entirely by their parents. He spent freshman year partying, sophomore year finding himself, and junior year traveling through Europe on their dime. Every postcard he sent home, sun-drenched beaches, neon cities, moonlit bridges, was met with applause. Look at our boy, their mother would say, her voice shimmering with pride. He's experiencing the world. Selene experienced 12-hour shifts and student loan paperwork, but she kept going, because unlike Alaric, she had no safety net. She built her future inch by inch, late night by late night, failure by failure. After graduating, she moved across the country, took an entry-level tech job with a salary barely enough for rent, and worked 60-hour weeks until her eyes burned. She coded until dawn. She read business textbooks on the bus. She created prototypes on the floor of her tiny studio apartment because she didn't have room for a desk. It was exhausting. It was isolating. And no one back home asked how she was doing. They asked, however, about Alaric constantly. Your brother is dating a model now. Your brother is thinking of starting a business. Your brother is finally growing up. Her mother's voice always lifted when she said his name, as if speaking about a rising star, rather than a young man drifting comfortably on the support of 2 parents who never let him hit the ground. And then years later, something extraordinary happened. Selene's software idea, the one she had been building quietly for years, finally caught the attention of a small investor, then a bigger one, then 3 more. She formed a company, Techision Solutions, and for the first time in her life, people listened when she spoke. They valued her. They believed in her. Her parents didn't ask a single question. They never asked how many nights she slept at the office. They never asked about the investors she lost, the prototypes that failed, or the contracts she fought tooth and nail to secure. When she tried to tell them, they always redirected the conversation back to Alaric, his new job, his new girlfriend, his new opportunity. Red flags. In hindsight, signs she should have seen, moments that whispered the truth she refused to accept. To them, she was useful. He was beloved. As the years passed, Techision grew into a mid-sized firm with over 200 employees. Selene became a respected CEO in the tech world, calm, meticulous, brilliant. Forbes featured her, Conferences invited her. Investors sought her. Her parents never mentioned any of it, but she still picked up the phone, still attended holidays, still hoped quietly, painfully that one day her parents would see her the way they saw Alaric. Then came December, 3 weeks before Christmas. Her phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon from her mother, which was unusual enough to make her pause. Medema Selene. Dear, her mother said in that sugar-coated tone reserved exclusively for requests. We're having everyone over for Christmas Eve this year. It would be lovely if you could join us. For the first time in a long time, warmth fluttered in Selene's chest. Of course, she said softly. I'd love to come. But then came the reason, the real reason. Alaric is bringing his new girlfriend, her mother continued. Marigold Vance. She works at Hargrove and Partners. Her father is a partner there. Very influential, Harvard-educated, stunning girl. Every sentence was a parade of credentials. Her mother didn't call to invite her home. She called to announce a spectacle, to prepare the stage for the family's golden boy and his prestigious girlfriend. Make sure you wear something nice, her mother added. Marigold has exquisite style. The warmth inside Selene withered. Still, she forced a smile into her voice. I'll see what I can do, Mum. But she shouldn't have tried. She shouldn't have hoped. Because a week before Christmas, her father called Selene. He said bluntly, your mother and I think it's best if you don't come this year. There was no hesitation, no apology, no acknowledgement that she had been invited first. Marigold's family is very successful, he continued. We need to make a good impression. We don't want anything to complicate things. As if her presence, her existence were a liability. And that was when Selene finally understood something she had spent 32 years avoiding. In the Drayton family, she was always the afterthought, always the shadow, always the extra piece that didn't fit the picture. Her father's final words were not angry, not emotional, simply factual. Think of your brother's future. And then he hung up. That the snow outside her window fell silently, gently, indifferently, so different from the storm inside her chest. And in that quiet, painful moment, Selene realized the truth. This Christmas wasn't the first one she was excluded from. It was just the first one they said out loud. The days that followed that phone call passed in a strange, muted haze. Selene didn't argue. She didn't call back to demand an explanation or insist she had a right to be home. After 32 years, she had learned exactly how far her voice carried in the Drayton family, far enough to be heard, never far enough to matter. But the ache lingered, and when Christmas Eve finally arrived, it settled into her apartment like a heavy winter fog. Seattle was quiet that night, wrapped in cold and dim holiday lights that flickered against the windows of her high-rise condo. The city felt miles away, distant and blurred. While she sat curled on her couch with a blanket and a cup of untouched tea, her phone buzzed. A message from Alaric. At first, she thought maybe, just maybe, was a simple Merry Christmas, something human, something soft. Instead, it was a photo. Her parents' living room glowed with warm lights. The Christmas tree towered high, decorated with ornaments she had made as a kid. Her mother had kept them. Ironically, even though she rarely acknowledged the child who crafted them, the entire family stood smiling. Her parents, Alaric, his new girlfriend Marigold, perfect in red velvet. A long dining table behind them overflowed with food. No one had noticed Selene wasn't there. Or worse, everyone had. No one cared. Alaric followed the photo with a message. Hope you're having a relaxing night, sis. You know how these things are. Mum's a little stressed about making a good impression. You'll get it. She stared at the screen, the edges of her vision blurring. Something inside her, thin, worn, already fragile, finally cracked. But she didn't reply. She didn't ask why he had sent it or what he expected her to feel. She simply set the phone down, leaned back, and closed her eyes. She spent the rest of Christmas Eve alone. While laughter echoed through her house, she was no longer welcome in. By January, the city roared back to life. And Selene did what she always did with pain. She buried it under work. Techision Solutions entered its busiest quarter. New contracts rolled in. Investors scheduled back-to-back meetings. The company needed her leadership, and she poured every ounce of herself into its strategy sessions at dawn, development reviews past midnight. If grief knocked, she smothered the sound with productivity. One morning, as she walked into the office with a cup of black coffee and her tablet under one arm, her HR director, Morgan Tillman, approached with a strangely cautious expression. Morning, Selene, Morgan said, falling into step beside her. We have an applicant for the product strategy lead position. His resume is interesting. Selene raised a brow. Interesting how? Morgan hesitated, then exhaled. His name is Alaric Drayton. The world seemed to pause for half a breath. Selene stopped walking. I'm sorry, what? He submitted an application late last night, Morgan explained quietly. Cover letter, references, everything. I'm not sure he knows you're the CEO. A cold, bitter amusement flickered through her chest. Of course he didn't know. Her parents never mentioned her accomplishments. They had always described her work, vaguely some tech thing, a small startup, nothing special. Alaric probably thought she was still coding in a cubicle somewhere. How strong is his application? She asked. Morgan grimaced. He's confident, but his experience is thin for a leadership role. Selene nodded once. Schedule the interview. I want it handled exactly like any other candidate. Should I tell him you'll be observing? No, she said softly. Let's keep that part a surprise. The conference room was bright, glass-walled, and positioned at the heart of the office's symbolic space. I meant to reflect the transparency and rigor of the company. Selene sat at the far end of the table, silent, disguised in the role of a board member rather than CEO. She wore no nameplate. She didn't need one. Alaric walked in 5 minutes late. He looked polished, but overly rehearsed. The kind of confidence that cracked under pressure. He shook hands with the panel, not even glancing in Selene's direction. If he recognized her, he didn't show it. When the interview began, the red flags rose immediately. He spoke over the engineering lead. He dismissed the research director's questions with shallow, catch-all answers like that's just a management issue, or I'll figure it out as I go. He bragged about natural leadership, though his resume showed he had jumped between short-term jobs without real accomplishments. Then came the moment that made even the panel shift uncomfortably. So, Alaric said, leaning back, I'm willing to take this position as long as the salary reflects my potential. I know how these small tech companies work. You need someone who can bring charisma and vision. Selene watched him, expression unreadable. Morgan cleared her throat. We're still evaluating fit before discussing compensation, right? He interrupted. But let's not waste time. The way I see it, you're looking for someone like me, someone bold, someone with connections. The engineering lead's mouth twitched, but he stayed silent. Then Morgan finally turned toward Selene. Board member Drayton, do you have any questions for our candidate? Alaric snapped his head toward the far end of the table. For the first time he saw her clearly. His confident smile froze. Selene, he whispered, color draining from his face. She folded her hands neatly. Good morning, Alaric. The room fell into a stunned silence. He blinked rapidly. You're on the board. Since when? Since I founded the company, she replied gently. Techision Solutions is mine. The last word landed like a hammer. Alaric's jaw tensed. His hands clenched slightly at his sides. His confidence crumbled in front of the panel publicly, painfully. Every ounce of superiority he had walked in with leaked out of him. I didn't know, he stammered. Mum and Dad said you worked somewhere smaller. Yes, she said quietly. I know what they said. He swallowed hard, unable to meet her eyes. The interview ended shortly after, the air thick with humiliation he couldn't hide. The panel thanked him politely. Morgan escorted him out, and Selene remained seated, breathing steadily, keeping every emotion behind a practiced wall. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge. It was simply the truth coming to light. She didn't expect the fallout, but it came quickly. That afternoon, the front desk called up in a panic. Ms. Drayton, your parents are here. They're demanding to see you. Selene closed her laptop slowly. Send them to conference room B. Moments later, Edmund and his older Drayton stormed inside, flushed with anger. How could you humiliate your brother like that? Her mother cried. You knew he needed this job, her father added sharply, and you just sat there, letting him embarrass himself. Selene looked at the two people who had shaped her entire life and finally said the words she had swallowed for years. I gave him a fair interview, nothing more, nothing less. That's not enough. Her mother snapped. You're his sister. You should have protected him. Selene held their gaze, calm and unshaken. For 32 years, she said softly, I was the one who needed protecting. The room went silent. Her father shook his head, refusing to understand. Whether you like it or not, you're ruining his future. She exhaled, steady and sure. No, she said. I'm finally refusing to ruin mine. And with that, part to close not with shouting, not with chaos, but with a quiet, irreversible shift that no one in the Drayton family could undo. The confrontation in conference room B lingered in the air long after her parents stormed out, leaving nothing behind but tension and the faint scent of cold winter air clinging to their coats. Selene didn't move for several minutes. She sat at the long table with her palms resting flat against the wood, breathing slowly, letting the echoes of her mother's accusations settle like dust around her. It was strange. She expected to feel gutted or rattled or furious. Instead, she felt steady. Something inside her had shifted, quietly but definitively. The way a lock clicks into place after years of misalignment. The moment her parents accused her of ruining her brother's future, something in her chest had snapped back into its rightful position. That she finally understood. Their disappointment wasn't hers to carry, and it never had been, but the conversation wasn't over. Not yet. Later that afternoon, Morgan poked her head into Celine's office. "They're back," she whispered carefully. "All three of them." Selene looked up from her laptop. "All three. Alaric's with them this time. They're waiting in the big conference room." Selene closed her laptop. Her movements were calm, almost gentle, as she stood. "Thank you, Morgan. I'll take it from here." Walking down the hallway, her heels clicked against the polished floor in a steady, unbroken rhythm. She felt no tightness in her chest, no tremor in her hands, just clarity, a kind of stillness she hadn't known she was capable of when she entered the conference room. Her parents were pacing, their expressions suffocating with urgency. Alaric sat at the table, shoulders tense, eyes avoiding hers. Her mother spoke first. "Selene, we need to talk." As a family, Selene took her seat at the head of the table, the place she always sat in this room, though her family had never seen her there before. "All right," she said softly. Her father stepped forward, jaw clenched. "What you did today was unacceptable. You set your own brother up to fail." "I sat in on a scheduled interview," she replied evenly. "That's what CEOs do." "You humiliated him," her mother snapped. "You could have warned him, or guided him, or given him the job just because he's my brother." Selene finished, her tone calm but sharp enough to draw silence. Alaric shifted uncomfortably, but still didn't speak. Her father slammed his palm against the table, not hard, but enough to punctuate his anger. "You've always had this jealousy about you. Ever since you were young, always competing, always needing to be the best." Selene blinked once, slowly. "Jealousy? Don't pretend," her mother hissed. "You've hated how much attention your brother gets. Now that you have some power, you're punishing him for it." Selene let the words wash over her. For the first time in her life, she didn't shrink beneath them. She didn't internalize them. She simply observed them like studying old brittle paper that crumbled at the slightest touch. Then she folded her hands neatly in her lap. "Dad, Mum." Her voice was soft but steady. "I didn't sabotage him. I didn't manipulate the interview. I didn't even speak until the end. You didn't need to." Her mother spat. "Your presence was enough." "Then maybe," Selene said, "he wasn't prepared for the position." Alaric finally looked up, anger flashing across his face. "Don't talk to me like I'm incompetent." "I'm not," she said. "I'm talking to you like a hiring manager evaluating a candidate." Her father scoffed. "So that's all he is to you now? A candidate?" "No," she said quietly. "He's my brother. That's why I'm being honest instead of enabling him." All three stared at her, and for the first time in 32 years, Selene didn't look away. "You say I'm jealous," she began. "But you've never once asked what it felt like growing up in this family. You want honesty. Fine, I'll give it to you." Her mother's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Selene." "No," she said. "I'm done being careful." The room stilled. "For my entire childhood, I worked harder than anyone asked me to. I brought home straight A's, scholarships, awards, and every time the response was the same. 'That's nice, honey.' Then you'd turn to Alaric and say, 'Show us what you did today.' She turned toward her father. 'You told me I was independent and capable,' which was code for, 'We won't help you.'" Her voice didn't break. It didn't tremble. It simply flowed. "I put myself through college with 3 jobs because you said you couldn't afford to help me. Then you paid for Alaric's private university without blinking." Her mother looked away, guilt flashing, then denied just as quickly. "That was different. He needed guidance. You didn't." Selene breathed out a quiet laugh. "Of course, because I was the responsible one, the self-sufficient one, the daughter who didn't need love, only tasks." Her father crossed his arms defensively. "We supported you more than you realize." That was when her tone shifted, still calm, but impossibly sharp. She asked, "When you disinvited me from Christmas, when you told me to stay away so your son could impress his girlfriend's rich parents." Her mother's face flushed. "Don't twist this into something ugly." "I'm not twisting anything," Selene said. "I'm describing my reality." Silence thickened, uncomfortable and inescapable. "This family hurt me," she continued softly. "Not once, not in one moment, but repeatedly, for years, and today was the first time you felt even a fraction of what I've lived with my entire life." Her words didn't echo. They settled heavy, unavoidable, and for the first time, her parents had nothing to say. Selene turned toward her brother, really looked at him. Alaric, she said, if you genuinely want a future here, I'm willing to help, but not by giving you a leadership role you haven't earned. He straightened, waiting. You can start in an entry-level position, she said plainly. Work your way up, like everyone else. His face contorted with disbelief. Are you insane? I'm not starting at the bottom. That's where everyone starts, she replied. Including me. I'm your brother, he snapped. And I'm the CEO, she answered. This is the only fair offer I can give. He pushed back from the table. Then forget it. I'm not wasting my time here. Her parents followed his lead, rising with indignation. This is on you, her father said coldly. Whatever happens to him now, it's your fault. Selene didn't flinch. No, whatever happens to him now is the result of the choices he's making. Her mother grabbed her purse, frustration radiating off her. You've changed, Selene. Yes, she said. I finally have. And with that, her family walked out, 3 silhouettes moving down the hallway without a single backward glance. When the door clicked shut, silence rushed in. But it wasn't the suffocating silence of her childhood. It wasn't the lonely silence of Christmas Eve. It was peaceful, wide, liberating. Selene stood alone in the conference room, the city skyline stretching beyond the windows like a horizon she had claimed for herself. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was chasing her family's approval. She didn't feel lesser. She didn't feel small. She felt finally whole, and she understood. Something simple but profound. She wasn't losing her family. She was losing the version of herself who kept begging to be chosen, and she wasn't that woman anymore. In the days that followed the confrontation, the office felt different. Not because anything had changed externally, the deadlines remained tight, the meetings constant, the hum of keyboards steady, but because something inside Selene had finally settled. A boundary long overdue had been drawn, not in anger, but in clarity. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel responsible for her family's emotional weather, and that freedom was quiet, clean, and strangely beautiful. 2 full weeks passed without a single phone call, message, or unexpected visit. The silence didn't wound her the way it once might have. Instead, it felt like space, like air. She worked, she rested, she walked through her apartment at night with the soft glow of city lights reflecting off the windows, feeling a steadiness in her chest that she had never known before. Then, on a rainy Friday evening, someone rang her apartment's intercom. She wasn't expecting anyone. She almost didn't answer, but when she picked up the receiver, her father's voice came through, strained, uneasy. We're downstairs. Your mother and we need to talk to you. For a brief moment, the old instinct tugged at her, the urge to brace, to tighten, to prepare for another emotional blow. But she exhaled and let that reflex drift away. I'll buzz you in, she said simply. Her parents arrived soaked from the rain, their coats dripping, their expressions carved with something she hadn't seen in years: humility. Not anger, not indignation. Something closer to defeat. Her mother took in the condo slowly, the high ceilings, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, the elegant neutral furniture, the quiet sense of order and success. It was the first time either of them had truly stepped into her world. You live beautifully, her mother murmured, unable to mask her surprise. Selene didn't comment. She motioned toward the sitting area. Have a seat. Her father cleared his throat. He sat stiffly, as if unsure whether he was allowed to be comfortable. Her mother sat beside him, fingers twisting nervously around her purse strap. There was a long pause, then her father spoke, first words heavy, forced out like stones. It's about your brother. Of course it was. Selene leaned back, hands resting loosely on her knee. What happened? Her mother inhaled sharply, eyes filling with a mix of exhaustion and lingering disappointment. He lost his job. Her father added quickly, completely blindsided. They said he wasn't meeting expectations, but we both know he's capable. The whole company must have had unrealistic demands. Selene remained silent, letting the explanations wash over her without absorbing them. And Marigold, her mother continued, voice cracking just slightly. She ended things. Said she needed someone more stable, someone with a clearer direction. Her father looked away, jaw tight. He's devastated. There it was, the collapse her parents had spent years preventing. The unraveling of the golden boy they had protected from consequences for 3 decades. And his career. Selene asked. Her father's voice dropped. We don't know what's left of it. He's lost. Her mother clasped her hands tightly in her lap. We came to ask if you could help him. Give him a chance. Guide him. He needs you, Selene. The irony wasn't lost on her. For years, she had needed them, and they had turned away, but she felt no satisfaction in seeing them humbled. Only a quiet ache for how long this path could have been avoided. Her parents watched her with a kind of desperate hope built on a lifetime of assuming she would always be the reliable one, the fixer, the responsible daughter. But for the first time, they also looked unsure, even afraid, as if they finally realized there were limits to what they could take from her. And in their silence, Selene realized something as well. This was the first moment they had truly looked at her, not at the daughter who should carry the weight, not at the shadow behind their son, but at the woman she had become. She spoke gently. "I'm sorry he's struggling, I really am, but I need to understand something. Are you asking me to give him a job, or to save him from the consequences of his choices?" Her mother opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, "Both." Selene nodded slowly. "I can offer one of those things. The honest one." Her father frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, her tone even and unwavering, "that if Alaric wants to rebuild, he can start at the bottom. He can work hard. He can learn, but he doesn't get shortcuts." Her mother stiffened. "Entry level, after everything he's been through." "After everything I went through," Selene corrected softly. "That was exactly where I started." Her father's voice sharpened. "You can't expect him to accept that." "I'm not expecting anything," she replied calmly. "I'm offering an opportunity, not a title." Her mother shook her head, disbelief flaring across her face. "But he's your brother, and I love him," Selene said quietly, "which is why I won't lie to him. If he wants to build a future, he can start from the foundation just like I did." Her father was silent now. Her mother looked torn between anger and realization, and Selene saw it in their eyes, the painful, dawning truth. They had raised a son who had never been required to stand on his own, and a daughter who learned to build a life from nothing. Only now were they seeing the cost. Her parents rose slowly, uncertainly, not in outrage this time, but in defeat. Her mother spoke first. "He won't accept your offer." Selene nodded. "That's his choice." Her father looked at her with something soft and foreign, respect, maybe, or understanding, still new and fragile. "You've become," he began, struggling for words. "Strong." "I always was," she said gently. "You just never noticed." The room went still. Her mother swallowed, voice barely above a whisper. "We should have done better by you." Selene didn't say yes or no. She didn't relieve their guilt. She didn't feed it either. She simply said, "I know," and somehow that was enough for now. Her parents left quietly. No slamming doors, no bitter final words. Just two people walking out into the hallway, carrying decades of realization on their shoulders. When the door clicked shut, Selene stood alone again in her apartment. But the loneliness that once haunted her had dissolved. It had been replaced by something sturdier, something earned. She walked to the window, watching the rain streak across the glass, the city lights shimmering below like constellations scattered at her feet. This quiet, this independence, this peace was hers. Not because she fought for validation, not because she shaped herself around her family's needs, but because she finally understood that her worth had never come from them. It came from her choices, her resilience, her boundaries, her relentless, unacknowledged strength. Her phone buzzed once, a message from Morgan. Just a quick update on tomorrow's agenda. Nothing dramatic, nothing painful, just life moving forward. Selene smiled. She didn't know if her family would ever fully change. She didn't know if Alaric would accept her offer, or if he would continue searching for shortcuts. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She no longer needed their approval to be whole, and that knowledge was a freedom she had spent her entire life unknowingly searching for. As she turned off the lights and let the soft glow of the city fill the room, a single truth settled quietly in her chest, steady, irrevocable, and finally hers. Sometimes, family isn't the people who raised you, but the ones who respect you. Just tell me.